right, so welcome everyone. My name is Anita Thompson, for those that are new. I own Art Venture Workshops. I'm a mobile-based art business and I teach mostly for libraries, but also a rec center in Warwick Township, Autism Cares Foundation for in Southampton, and a few other kind of pop-up areas. I have a YouTube channel with free tutorials. So if you're interested in that, I can get your email at the end as well if you put it in the chat. But we're going to get started on this, on these spring dandelions. And I don't know about you guys, but my lawn was covered in dandelions like last week, I think because of all the rain. And apparently they're weeds, but I think they're kind of neat looking. But either way, I was inspired by them last year. So I created this last year. I usually create my drawings at least 8 months in advance. So it was pretty funny. They were popping up.
Yeah, tiny.
It's like, oh, see, there they are. Okay, so we are going to start with our brown colored pencil. And you're probably thinking, well, how in the heck am I going to erase that? So colored pencils are a little tougher to erase, but if you go lightly, which is what we're going to do first, you will be able to erase it. So originally when I had taught this class, we did pencil first and then went over it in colored pencil, but I found that it took everyone longer. So I feel confident that everyone can do it starting off with the colored pencil. So that's what we're going to do. Oh, thanks, Denise. Perfect. Yeah, if anybody wants to drop their email in the chat, you can do it privately to me, and I will add you to the newsletter. And then also I'll send you my YouTube channel as well. Okay, so, and I'll remind you again at the end. So we're going to start off with our brown colored pencil. I'm going to go in a little bit closer now, and you will see me doing that, adjusting my camera in order to do that. And as I mentioned, we're recording, and so this recording will be available to you to either do again or share, at least at some point this week, whenever Warminster gives it out. Thanks, Kathy. Okay, so we're going to start here over toward the right side, and this is how we're going to sort of start off with this drawing. We're going to start off and do the dandelions first. So I know it looks like a complicated drawing, but we break it down. And so we're going to start off with the dandelion in the middle here. It is over more toward the right. And then, we're going to add the dandelion in back. And we're going to add all of the leaves that are happening. And then really in the background is when we start to take our pencil and use the side of it, and we actually start to shade in different directions and also with different pressure. So anyway, let's get started. So again, we're going to start with this dandelion, and we're going to start toward the bottom right side of our paper, not in the corner, but a little bit over, because our dandelion here is about right here. So if you can see my paper here, you can see that my finger is pretty much in the middle of this paper. And so just kind of, okay, you can see that. I wanted to make sure that you could see the line. The other thing is that once you draw the line to the stem, I should say, to the dandelion, you're probably thinking, well, there's stuff in front of it. So the way that we do this is we draw lightly, and then we start adding things in front and back, and that's why we use our eraser. And that's also why we draw lightly, so that you're able to get where, where everything is on the paper in the right direction. So this is the stem of this dandelion. And we're going to go up pretty high here. And then what we're going to do is we're going to add sort of an oval on its side. And if anybody can't see or needs something, please feel free to put it in the chat. Like you could say, oh, maybe if you can't see a certain corner, just say, oh, could you move it over here or something like that. I pay attention to the chat. So this is the inside coming off of the stem. And then what we're going to do is we're going to add a circle, because this is going to be the dandelion the dandelion puff. And so just do your best with that circle. And again, everything should be very light for you. I always draw a little darker so you can see it on Zoom. So by light, I mean you should be able to see your pencil marks, but it should be light enough that you're still able to erase. Okay. Now, once you have the first circle, which is really the first dandelion, just going to erase a little bit there. We have a portion of one, right, hanging out here in the back. So we add another kind of circle. Yes, Kathy, absolutely. So after this section, you can absolutely watch the whole video on YouTube. Yes. So what I do is I send it out to, as long as you have the link. So at first, when I record these videos for a library, I send it to them and I put it on my YouTube in unlisted, so that it's not, you wouldn't be able to go on there and see it yet, but it's there as long as you have the private link, and I will send everybody the link. The library usually sends them out to anybody who registers, because we usually have about 45 to 50 people that register for these classes. They just don't all attend live. They usually wait for the recording. But the great thing is once you have the recording, you can go back and you can slow it down. You can redraw it, you can share it, that sort of thing. But anyway, it usually sits on there for about a month in unlisted, and then I release it. I publish it, which I bring it to public, which means that you can then see it on YouTube anytime. So I hope that's sort of what you were asking. So yeah, these become public. I'm releasing a bunch in the next week because and these were ones that were in the past and from a few years ago that have just been sitting in my Zoom, and they charge me for it. And so I have to put them somewhere, and I'm putting them on YouTube. So you'll see a bunch more from the last few years. So that could be fun. Okay, so we've got our two dandelions here. Yes, that is an oval in the center. So basically, this is the part of the dandelion in the center, and I'm gonna go even closer so that you can see. There we go. Yep, so we have an oval here and one here. Those are the centers of the dandelion. We're going to go back later on and make those a little more realistic. Let me see if adding more light is helpful. I think adding light, excuse me, from the other side is better. There we go. Okay, now once we have that stem, we're also now going to make the stem for this one. So this stem comes from behind here. So it's this part. And so what we're going to do is we're going to start off with a diagonal line that is going to go down and behind the other dandelion. And then you're going to double that line so that it looks like a stem. So again, we're going to be drawing in front of these, behind these, but we look at the drawing and we look at what we can see right in the front. And that's, in a sense, these are sort of the two main attractions. Now, the next part that we're going to be drawing is the dandelion that is not quite bloomed yet. So that's this one. And so we're going to look at it and we're going to see, you know, it kind of starts to twist, but it comes from the bottom and it twists. It kind of meets up right in front of this dandelion, kind of in the middle. So maybe about right here. And so what you're going to do is you're going to draw the twisting stem. I like to use one line first because it's easier. And you can also see where it's going to end up. And then you're going to move it or draw it upwards. And then you're going to attach the top part that is kind of shaped like this. And we don't do any details, real details yet. We're going to draw some little leaves coming off of, you know, at this, off of the flower there, like so. And then we're going to make that line doubled so that it looks more realistic. And I'll give everybody a little more time. I don't know why I made this top part pointy. I apologize. Let's not make this top point pointy. I'm going to make it a little more open like this. And then the white part is going to be on the top of it. Good to see everybody tonight. Beth, Mary Ellen, Donna, Cindy, Joanne and Danielle and Kathy, Tony, Denise, Kim, Jan, and Ellie. Great to have everybody this evening. Okay, so now we also have another dandelion up here. So you can see me in the original sample pointing to the other unopened dandelion, right? And so we see the top of it, and then we see, if you follow my finger down, here is the start of the stem. It kind of goes around and then it goes down. So let's draw the top part of the dandelion. It's going to be right above this dandelion, but not exactly, closer toward the top of your paper. So maybe about right here. Move this down. And then from that, you're going to start to draw the stem. And it's going to kind of curl around behind the circular part. And then it's finally going to go down to the ground. And now if your stem isn't ending up in the exact place where mine is, it's okay. You know, you can stop and adjust it and erase if you like, but if you have it in the general area, I wouldn't worry about it. And then we want to make sure to add some kind of strands of, there's sort of like the bending of small leaves that are right underneath the plant. Oh, I'm sorry, it's Emily, but Ellie is doing it with me. Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Hi, Emily. Nice, Emily and Ellie. Very nice. Very happy to have you both. Okay. So can you see how now, you know, we have a good basic drawing here, and we're going to start adding the other leaves. And then after we do that, we start to add these sort of lightly shaded things in the background, and that makes it look like we have an area of grasses that we're doing. And so it looks complicated. I don't feel like it's as complicated, but it looks complicated. If you break everything down step by step, it's a lot easier. So I'm adjusting my camera one more time here, moving it down just a little bit, because we're going to now go into the bottom left corner of our paper. And so what we're going to be doing now is we have sort of our main players here. We have a few more, but we're going to go start off now on the left, and we're going to create these shapes. And so again, what we're doing right now is we're just drawing everything in, and then we go back and we start doing shading. We get a little darker. We go back and we add white and then black, all that kind of good stuff. But for now, we just want to get everything drawn and in the proper place where it is on the paper. So here we are, starting again. We're always starting at the bottom of our paper. And so here we can see where we've drawn our dandelions. We move on over a little bit. We do have another long leaf right here. So actually let's do that one first. I was going to have us do this one, but let's do this one first. And so it's around the same area as our dandelion here. I'm realizing I should probably curl my dandelion up just a little bit. That's just me kind of wanting to fix it a little. Okay, because this is also going to come up like so. And what I like to do first is draw the middle of this leaf. So this is really the middle of it. So you want to make sure to leave room, because you're then going to be adding the outside part of this blade of, it's really sort of like a blade of grass, and that goes all the way down. So you see here's the middle, and then right around it I create the curvy parts of the blade of grass. Like so. I'll wait till everyone's finished. So you may have to do some adjusting as far as like if you draw it too close, maybe, just erase a little and draw it a little more to the left. Mine's a little bit close to the left side, but I'm okay. We still have room for this plant here. And so what we're going to do next is create this blade of grass here. And so we start off here at the bottom, and because mine is so close to the left side, I probably instruct you to do the same. We're going to draw it sort of on top of this blade of grass. So same thing. What we're going to do this time is we're going to look at the general shape here, and we're going to draw the underside of it. So what that means is it's going to be a shape like this. And here I'll draw in the middle of it. And then you're going to then take this part and start to bend. So it looks like it's in two parts, but it's really because the plant is bending. So let's make it look like this. And you can draw in the middle of it. And then it's flipping over. So it kind of extends out like this, and it's a little bit wider and then comes to a point. Darker. And then we're going to kind of hop over to the right side, and we're going to draw some filler leaves here toward the right. And so coming from right over here, what we want to do, the one thing that we want to do before we go draw the next blade of grass, right at the bottom of our dandelion here in the stem, this is curling over. It's kind of bending. So we want to come here toward the bottom, and what we're going to do is we're just going to add a curve like this. See that? We just add that curve, and now your plant is bending a little bit. And then we're going to now create this leaf. And so that is going to start about right here. And so what we do is we're going to go up, and this time we're going to kind of be drawing the outside shape. I know I've had you draw the middle part, but we're going to draw the outside shape. And so I'm going to kind of do this a little bit fast so you can see. But it's just sort of the outside shape of a blade of grass. So take your time with that shape. I know it's kind of a funky one. We're going to draw some more shorter blades of grass coming over it and kind of curving towards the bottom right of our paper. But take your time with this. And now we're going to add these two other blades of grass right here. So right in front of here, we're going to make a curve. And then down. And we're going to make one more. So two curves, but the second one is going to have sort of some spiky stuff happening like that. So if you stop and look already, you already have a pretty good drawing. And it may look complicated, but we've done it step by step. You know, and that's the key, breaking it down, making it a little simpler. Now, our next thing that we're going to draw, we have a little bit of a, one more dandelion here where the white parts have, you know, been blown off. So this is the oval part of that dandelion. You can see underneath it are the little sort of flowering, you know, and I apologize, I don't know the names of any of this stuff. The flower, the leaves, the tiny leaves underneath it are kind of, you know, bending over. underneath it. So anyway, here is that dandelion. So we're going to draw the oval here. And then the stem is going to be going behind. And you're going to make it a double. See, and you can see I'm kind of even going over one of the other dandelions, and that's okay. Oh, no worries, Kathy. You'll receive the recording. Thank you for coming so far, but you'll receive the rest. Can't wait to see what you do with it. And then once you draw that, then you're going to create those little, those little kind of leaves right there. And then we're going to start to add a few more leaves and blades of grass kind of in the background. And then we can actually start doing the shading. So let's add some more leaves here. We have one that's happening kind of right around these areas. And what we're going to do is we're actually going to be first drawing kind of a line here and here. And that's going to kind of go down like that. And this is going to be a suggestion of kind of a dandelion or a blade of grass. We're going to add another part of that as well. And it's going to come right off of this dandelion. And it's going to kind of go right and meet up with the other dandelion stem. And we're going to make that a double. So we also want to take a minute now, and we're going to add the little curling over stems on this dandelion that we didn't add. So here on the left, we make a curved line, and we're going to make this one, again, kind of a double, and it's a little bit, you can see a little bit of the other side showing, and so you can add that line right there, or that shape, I should say. And we're going to make one on the other side as well, curling over. So I'm pointing to it. And we have a third one, it's small, that's right here, kind of in the background. And it gives our dandelion a bit more dimension by doing that. And then we're going to add a blade of grass. And that's going to be right here, starting where in between where this blade of grass is and in between where this dandelion stem is. So we're making it in the background. So wherever you have room, you're just going to make kind of a pointed stem behind there. And you want to make sure that you can see at least part of it. So see what I did here? I came here. I'm going behind everything. And that's where my blade of grass is going. And here's the middle of it. You can see a little bit of the middle of it. And then we're going to come over to the left where this blade of grass is. And we're going to add another sort of area that's going to look like a bit of a blade of grass by going like this. And we're going to first time shade it just a little bit. We're going to stay here on the left, and we're going to add another blade of grass that is kind of pointy. First, we come out and make a curve, and then it's going to kind of be like, holly, right? And we're going to make that shape like that. And then our final piece that we're going to draw before we start adding the shading is going to be the hint of a blade of grass right here. And so we're going to, right behind where this dandelion is, we're going to create a shape like this, and then you're going to very lightly shade it. And as you go down to shade it, you're going to go lighter. The pressure that you're going to apply on the pencil is going to be lighter up here. So a little darker up here. And then you're going to kind of fade it out. So we're going to start adding some shading. And first we're going to start in the background. So if you look at this one, it seems like, again, there's a lot going on. And it really has to do with the shading that we're doing. It gives the impression that there is more in the background than there really is. So let's start again back down to the bottom left corner of our paper. And we see, brown and black happening, but we're using our brown first. And we're going to create up and down shading to mimic grass. Although first we're going to go to all the way to the bottom, and we're going to go across, and we're going to go this way. And this is a bit of a lighter shading. So just all the way across, kind of mimicking maybe dirt. Little bit of, grasses as well. This is a very free-flowing drawing, I feel. And then once we do that, we're now going to go up and down and kind of do a scribble, kind of scribbling here. And also at the same time, lifting your pencil to create strokes. So I'll say that again. Again, this is with the brown. We come over here and we kind of start to do a scribbling, but we also lift our hand so that we're making individual strokes. It doesn't have to be one or the other. It can be a kind of a combination. You can make some more strokes up here. Again, so you can see it's like mimicking grass. So we're in the background here. So what we're doing now is we're filling in, as I mentioned, the background. So, some spots in between where you see what we've drawn, you can do some more filling in. So maybe let's fill in some right here. We're going to go back and add black to around here, but just fill that in. There's some kind of grass popping out over there. And if I can direct your attention for a little bit now to the top part of the dandelions, what we're going to do, again, staying in the background for now, we're going to be shading around them, sort of around the shape of the top of them. And we're going to be going sort of in a, to the top of the paper, to the like or the right side, kind of a slanted sort of shading, I should say, and very lightly. So we're going to start here. And we're going around the stem of the one here. And then we are also making sure to go around the two dandelions. And then just adding some scribble shading, I kind of call it scribble shading, going around the shape of the white parts of the dandelion. And you can make it a little bit darker when it gets kind of around the white shapes. And you can fade it out a little bit as you get to the top. We're going to start adding some more shading. We're going to now go towards this stem here, and we're going to shade a little bit of brown behind it, but I like to kind of go on the left side, going down the left side of it. And I'm kind of making a random shape here, sort of to mimic maybe the pointy parts of some of the other leaves. So come in here behind, and then we're also going to fill in on the other side when you're finished with that. So I have my pencil pointed to where we're going to go next. And so that's here, this part, and we're just going to shade very lightly right near these stems. We're going to make a few more suggestions of some other stems using this brown pencil. And so, for instance, we started doing that here. And so maybe we want to add another one here that is kind of going upward toward the top right of our page. And now we're going to fill in with brown very lightly in between those shapes. What I like to do is kind of do a little bit of outlining of that shape. So see what I mean is the dandelions are kind of making a shape of their own. This is called negative space, the space in between two objects. It kind of creates a shape of its own. And so you want to lightly shade in between some of those spaces that you see. We're going to add one more sort of stem area here. So you can go down toward the ground here, like so, and make it a double. You know, and here again, it doesn't have to look exactly like mine. And then you're going to shade in between using your brown. And you, again, can kind of outline the shapes in between. And then we're going to make a few more suggestions here by making kind of a V shape and coloring it in very lightly. Adding a few more shaded shapes like that, like this one. Maybe we make it curve a little bit. And so what you're doing is the shapes that you're not shading in, it tricks the eye in making it seem like there's more happening in the background. And that's what we're trying to do here. So we're kind of making, you know, suggestions of blades of grass, greenery, that sort of thing. And so then that's going to bring us down to our leaf here, where we want to do some shading with the brown on the right side, very lightly at the top. And then we want to kind of outline on the right side the outside shape of that leaf, so that the outline is a little more bold than the rest. And then with the shading in this section, we go incredibly light, like you can barely, you know, barely see. Again, I'm kind of doing a scribble. And then we're going to add lines like this to indicate, you know, that it is a leaf. And you're going to do that on both sections. I'm going to add some more shading here around that leaf. So if we go right up against, we're going to add some, you know, kind of random shading here, kind of outlining that side of the leaf and just kind of lightly filling in that background area. You know, when we see some stems, you can outline them. We're going to get to our final part in the background here on the right, and we're going to start making grasses again. So this is going to be Again, remember the strokes going up and down. We can start here at the bottom, and we can do a little bit of shading, first of all, in this blade of sort of grass here on the bottom portion of it. And you can outline a little bit there. Staying here in this bottom right corner of our paper, we're now going to start adding more grasses. So some curving grass here. We're going to start adding some grasses in this area. And you can also sort of do some scribbling on top of each other. So see, you're just kind of trying to make it look, again, filled in, but the suggestion that there are some grasses growing here. So we're finished with our background portion using the brown, but now we want to go in to the leaves, and we're going to start now shading. I'm going to sharpen my brown just a little bit. And we're going to now pop over to, we're going to start off on the bottom left corner, back again. And we're going to make the middle part of the leaf darker. And then we're going to shade. Again, you know, shading like this on the top portion of that leaf. And when you're done with that, you're going to shade on the underside of the leaf, going a little bit darker right where it's curving. And then again, getting lighter and lighter in the rest of the blade of that grass. And you can kind of re-outline that blade of grass if you like. We're going to shade in this one, and basically you kind of shade around the pointy parts and around the edge, and kind of leave a little bit of the top undone. So I'm going to recopy that so you can see it. So see, I did a little bit of shading, got a little darker in the two pointy parts here. And that's going to bring us into this blade of grass where we, again, you can do a little outlining. On the left. I have to re-outline mine just a little bit. And then the shading, I like to stick to the shading sort of right up against where we've outlined, but then going a little bit lighter as it gets down to the rest of it. But you can see the way I'm shading is I'm leaving part of the paper exposed. So, you know, the outlining is sort of like when we were creating the shading with strokes. It's just going in sort of a slanted direction. Then want to add a little bit darker brown down here. So we're going to go back. We're going to add a little bit darker right here, and then shade a little darker like so. So that's just a shadow that is on that blade of grass. And that's going to bring us to the other blade of grass back here. And again, you want to kind of outline it. So, you know, it's kind of there in the back. Going to outline it a little bit, including in the middle. And then again, you're going to shade kind of the whole thing using the side shading. So that was this blade of grass. And now we're going to go into the stem of our dandelion. And so with the dandelions, what we do is we make sure that the outer lines are a little more prominent by going over them. So they're not real dark, right? But they're darker so that you can see. And then we're going to shade at the top part of the stem. And then we're going to go on the left side. And then you're going to shade down the left side of that stem. And remember, this is the part that kind of curls over. But on the curling over part, we're going to do that white, excuse me, later on. So again, with that stem, we outline it, shade a bit at the top where it meets the bud of that dandelion, and then shade a little down to the left, down the left side. And then we're going to go on each of the little leaves underneath the bud and just add just a little bit of some shading. See what I do? So each leaf I kind of shade on the bottom. This one I shaded on the top. You want to shade on one part of the leaf. You know, we're going to be repeating that pattern for all of the rest of the stems from our dandelions. But then when you get into the actual bud, we're going to do the thing where we're going to create kind of strokes starting at the bottom of the shape of the dandelion. It's got that bud shape. And then at the top, we add some kind of darker curled spaces like this. I'm going to go in a little bit closer. You know, and again, once we add the black to really offset everything, it'll look really good. but we're going to add the white first. But we're going to continue on to the bud here, up here. Remember, we're going to do the same thing, add some strokes of color. And I like to add a little bit of shading in this one. You know, but remember doing the same thing to the leaves. And then our stem, outlining and shading. I like to shade on the left side, going down that stem. And that's going to bring us to our main two dandelions. So we'll start off with the stems. But first, let's go in the middle here with the oval. And we're going to shade very lightly on the bottom portion of that oval. So that bottom portion of the oval is shaded. And then when you're done with it, you can add these sort of like prickly, kind of like prickly hair shapes. So again, I shaded the bottom here. And then I went in and added these kind of prickly hairs coming out of it. You know, and when we get to the stem part, we get a little bit darker shading kind of right underneath where that oval is sitting on top. But then we get really light shading as we're inside the white area of the dandelion head. But when we get out of it, right, we cross down over, we're going to go a little bit darker. And also, again, outlining the lines for the dandelion stem. And then lightly shading all down the left side of the stem, right? You can use a stroke motion, picking up your pencil. We're going to do the same in the next dandelion where we start up top in the middle, right? And we're going to just lightly shade the bottom of our oval and make some of those kind of prickly hairs happen. And with this one, I didn't shade inside the dandelion stem, so I kind of left that alone. But then I came over to this dandelion without any of the, you know, sort of the fluffy things on it, and retraced around the oval, and then kind of made this kind of shape here on the right side. I'm going to go really close. So like that, and then colored that in. Remember, same thing with the little leaves outside of it. You know, you want to outline them. Outline the stem. And I like to shade on the right side of the stem this time. Okay, and so now we're going to put our brown down and we're going to pick up our white and we're going to start adding the highlights. And then our final part is we're just going to be adding a little bit of black. So let's pick up our white. We're going to start first on the bottom left side here. And we're going to just start to kind of color over using the white, the top portion of the leaf or blade of grass sort of deal. And you can add a little bit underneath. And you can see I'm kind of doing strokes like that. So we're going to use this white as some highlighting. And so we're going to go in the background here and over here, and we're going to start just adding some strokes of white to the grasses in the background. So they don't even have to, it doesn't even have to show a whole lot. You just want to add, almost like white grasses. You can even go on top of, you want to go on top of the brown. I know it's hard to see where, sometimes it's kind of in the middle or it's, there's a stem there. You're just kind of randomly adding some lightness to the background before we get into adding the rest on the actual grasses and such in front of us. So it should be kind of a quick, I'm gonna go in really close. Okay. So once you do that, we're going to now go back to our blades of grass, meaning this is the first one. And we're going to go in the middle and we're going to press on using our pencil in the middle. You can even go, 3 or 4 times, tracing the middle part of this blade of grass. And then we're going to go to the small dandelion and add some white on top of the brown and on tops or on the other side of each part of the leaf areas that we created where the brown is not. And you'll do the same with the stems going down. You're going to go where the brown is not. And so you're going to do that on the stem of our main dandelion as well. The one that's curving in front of it. Basically, a lot of the stems, you're going to now just add a quick kind of stroke of white along one side. And you can, it doesn't matter, you can pick a side, but it's usually, I like to do it on the side opposite of if we've done some darker shading. So now going in, binding your stems and the leaf that's next to the stems. And you're adding white. We'll come back to our dandelions, but I want to get the rest of these sections because the two dandelions are actually, we don't want to do those delicately. So a little more adding in with the white. We do want to come to the top parts of the unfinished, the unopened dandelions here. And we kind of add like a scribbling of white along with the other dandelion, the two that are kind of, they're buds, um, like so. And when you're ready on the right side at the bottom right corner, add some strokes of white in the grasses going outward like this. And we're going to add some shading of white in the middle of each, the actually three dandelions. So the middle of the oval on this one, on the top part, here too, and the whole thing on this one. So I'll say that again. We then come into the middle of each of our dandelions. These three. This one doesn't have the white poofy stuff. We add shading of white here and here and here. And now we're going to go inside and recreate the white portion of the two dandelions here. And so how we do that is first, we go around inside the edge of the circular area of the dandelion here on the left, and we're going to shade white, almost like we're shading a bubble. Maybe a little bit more here. And you can outline the whole circle part in white. And you're going to do that same thing to the other dandelion. You're going to kind of outline it in white and do a little shading at the top portion of the dandelion that's behind. And we're going to add all the prickles, right? The stuff that, and basically how I do that. So I'm going to show the original up close. And so how we get these, I made X's all over. And then I would scribble in sections to fill up the interior. And then finally I made kind of, prickly lines coming around the whole thing and then going in the middle with those prickly lines. So let's start off first creating some X's using the white. So just random X's. So it should look something like that. And you're going to do the same in the other one. You know, and it can be fast. It doesn't have to be, you know, a whole lot. And then you're going to start to add the lines, the prickly parts around both dandelions. And then you're going to go inside and kind of add kind of slanted lines. So you're doing this around both dandelions. So again, you go on the edge, you make white hairs kind of sticking out. You may have to go around twice. And then you also go, you know, in the middle and make those hairs. So it should look like that. And then you're going to lightly shade on top of the dandelions, but not the entire thing. So I like to kind of shade at the top and then the bottom right on the first dandelion. And again, I'm kind of shading slanted. And when you're done that, you can go back with your pencil, and I'm putting my pencil as if I'm gonna, you know, stamp the pencil. And then I scribble to make some more texture. You know, for both. And then this is our last part. We're going to pick up our black. And this is basically just adding some darker parts to what we have happening. So, for instance, adding some sort of black grass on top of the brown here at the bottom. So starting off in the background, you again can outline areas, meaning maybe outlining, I outline the 2 dandelions for sure. But if you look and see, I don't outline entire sections. I break up the line, you know, just kind of add a hint of some of the black so that it doesn't overpower the drawing. It just gives a little bit more of some clarification. So I do that throughout the drawing. So, you know, you can kind of outline things. And what I've outlined are the two stems of the main dandelions, the stems, and added some random lines in the portion of the dandelion, the two dandelions that are still closed. I add a little bit of darker shading with the black just on top of the brown at the tops of each dandelion stem, just a little bit, to make it a little bit darker. And then as you get to the bottom right side of the drawing, adding some black grass randomly and a little bit of outlining of this main kind of grass leaf, what have you. And then I do add, a few black little hairs inside the dandelion parts there in the middle. I can't wait to see what these look like. In the meantime, I'm just going to add my, while everybody's finishing up, I'm going to add my email. If you would like to take a picture and send me your work, I usually feature it in the next newsletter. And then also you can sign up for my weekly newsletter with that email as well. In my newsletter, I provide the registration links to the classes I teach for the libraries that are online. Some of them are in person, but most are online. So it's a similar setup like this evening. 90% are online still. So it's nice because you can be in the comfort of your own home, and you can draw in your pajamas or paint in your pajamas. It's great. You can have snacks while you're doing it, and you don't have to drive anywhere. It's especially great in the wintertime, in the colder months. But so my email is in the chat, and I am interested to see what you guys have done. So I'm going to stop the recording here.